Alrighty, that's how to talk here. Alright, I'm going to show you a bunch of fake ISPs here. Here's the first round. It's 168.198.1.-6. Now, actually, the only way a dash works is if you are the administrator, which in certain legal laws, the administrator or the NT here isn't really an NT, so which would be an ADNT. Who runs servers or oversees servers. But anyway, when you get down to, I kind of noticed an error on here. But anyway, the point of it is when you do numbers like this, to get the most out of your numbers and the most out of your server as far as bandwidth and speed, you do something close to this. And I know I wrote 3 when I should have wrote 4, so. So it's 168.198.1.01, which there was a dispute about whether it would accept it. At the provider, as long as the provider puts 01, 02, 03, 04 in on the last numbers, it will accept it. As far as going as far out as you can, technically you can go out some really far numbers on a single ISP. So when I look at 168.198.1.03, how far can I go out? It's been ranged out to 100,000 at that particular number right there. You can actually go out to 100,000, but you have to dedicate bandwidth to that specific number. And when I say dedicate, that means you got to add up every bit of bandwidth that your customers buy. So if they bought, I know this is ridiculous, 150,000 megabytes of bandwidth, you would allocate 190,000 bytes or megabytes, megabytes of bandwidth, and the 40 allows it to flex. When I say allows it to flex, it means that even though they're individual numbers and it's more work on the server, if there's, let's just say for whatever reason, the sub server on the pole can't keep up, then the allocated excess, you would see it go off on the server. So instead of dropping the connection, the pole server starts turning around and saying, I need bandwidth, and it'll up the bandwidth, and actually might even do a virtual DR drive on the hard drives, which will allow for like laptops that have SD a faster speed rate per SD, that have SD chips instead of a actual hard drive on them, where it would go virtual. But I told people, when you start looking at numbers, to allocate the first 10 numbers of that 01 anything to individuals, one to like put 10,000 to 5,000 numbers down, to allocate that individually by 1,000 per employee who handles those computers. And mainly it's an allocated number for an employee to handle a certain amount of people, which then you know who did and who didn't by the notes. But I thought you'd let you know that someone said they took it up to 198, or not 198, 168.185.1 point, and they were up to like 55,535 people on that number. But that has to have a dedicated bandwidth as well. So that means it can't be a flex bandwidth or a variable bandwidth. It has to be variable and flex, but it has to be dynamic to the fact of the ISP and that set of numbers, which thus gives you enough speed so when you're individually connecting and that server is running really quick, that you know that on both sides up to the other server, who is configured this way as well, that you're going to get the maximum amount of speed that you can. But at the same time, there is what they call a timeout, and that's when, like, say H&R Block starts filing tax after tax after tax after tax and whatnot. That's where the timeout will come in, and that's where the quote in H&R Block's tax system, it backs up the tax uploads, and it'll back it up so that the server can get accurate information. Because if you don't get accurate information, you don't have accurate income tax reports filed into the IRS. So that doesn't take long to update or upload, but it's built into the system by my request that all papers come in scanned or not scanned, or filled out or not filled out correctly and accurately. So now you know. I might talk a little longer when my battery isn't dying, but not dying, but running low. So there is dying, running low. So to show you a little bit more, but there has to be that other thing, and that's the boundary line for each ISP, and that's what makes it so that I can't see my neighbors and they can't see me, but the provider can see the number on the screen and know that I'll get warnings, because the warning system on the router is totally shut down. So you're not getting any warnings or any flags because of the fact of, well, you don't have them turned on. Anyway, that's all I gotta say.